Right guys, I thought I'd do you a quick video on welding thin sheet steel. I've had a few people messaging asking how we do this, and basically saying that you're struggling trying to weld thin steel, it's blowing holes in there, or you can't get a proper bite into the steel, it's just splattering and you've got bits of MIG wire sticking out everywhere, so on and so forth. So I'm going to show you the way I do it. I'm not saying this is the exact correct way to do it. There is people out there more skilled than me. This is just what works for me and the way I do it on these cars. So I'm going to start with a quick rundown of the MIG welder. So I'm using an old Snap-on 150 amp MIG. I'm using argon shield welding gas. I would not advise to use sort of hobby gas or CO2. You want some proper MIG gas in these things. I've never had any joy with the gasless welders for something like this. It's worth investing in a half decent welder. I mean, you can pick this sort of stuff up for, I think I paid 100 quid for this, 150 quid for this off a mate. You know, it's not an expensive bit of kit to have. I think I'm using 0.8 MIG wire, I think it is, in this one, with a tip to suit. Now obviously, depending on what welder you're using, these settings are going to sort of be variable depending on the wire size you're using, the tip you're using, the gas you're using. I'm just going to show you the way I do it on my particular MIG welder, and sort of the variables of what to look out for, you know, and how not to blow holes in this steel. So I'm going to start there, guys. I'm going to turn this ampage up. I'm going to turn the wire speed up. So I've got the ampage there on number 6, and I've got the wire speed on number 6 to suit. I'm going to show you what happens when you've got too much wire, too much ampage, which inevitably is heat, going into this kind of steel. One thing also to note is to make sure that you're welding clean steel or welding onto weld-through primer. You don't want to be welding to stuff like this or stuff like this. It wants to be nice clean steel or new steel with weld-through primer on. So this is what's going to happen, guys, if you've got too much ampage and too much wire speed onto the panel you're trying to weld. As you can see there, guys, it just absolutely obliterates that bit of steel there. That's because there's far too much heat going on there, far too much wire speed. So I find on this particular welder what works for me is to put my amp setting on number 2 and my wire speed on number 2 to suit, roughly around the same setting, number 2 for number 2. I found this works on quite a lot of MIGs. Matching your wire speed to your ampage tends to work on a lot of the MIGs I've used. And the way I tend to do it is basically, I never try to get a continuous weld all in one go, because again, you're going to put far too much heat in steel this thick. I think this is 16 gauge or 18 gauge steel, which is quite a average steel to be using on such repairs on cars like this and car restorations. And the way I do it is I just sort of zap, 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 take my time, nice and steady. You're never going to get the weld to look absolutely pitch perfect, but as long as you've joined them two panels together and you've got a decent penetration on there, you're going to end up grinding a lot of that back anyway. So this is the way I do it. So you can see this. Always get that little bit of excess MIG wire off the end of your welder. You don't want to be starting with a big tuft of wire hanging out the end there. As you can see there, that weld is not pitch perfect, but it's adequate to get two thin pieces of steel bonded together. Just do another small run down there. again there guys, as you can see, it's not blown through. It's not a pitch perfect weld again, but it's adequate. It's as neat as it needs to be able to grind back. So now I'm going to show you what happens if you've got the correct ampage but too much wire, or even not enough ampage with too much wire. And this is what a lot of you guys have sent in as to what your particular welds have been doing. As you can see there's no penetration on that whatsoever. That is because there's far too much wire coming out, and the welder physically can't melt that MIG wire fast enough to penetrate into the steel you're trying to weld. So that is not something you want to be doing. Also, don't be too far away. You don't want sort of that much wire all the way out the way. You want to be fairly close there so that your gas is taking effect, your gas is getting onto your steel. You don't want this kind of stuff sticking out, and you don't want this kind of stuff going through in between your panels that you're trying to weld. So I'll go back to the setting that we had a minute ago, which worked well for us, which is number 2 and number 2 on the wire setting. Now, as you can see, on to clean steel. Onto clean steel, we can get that reasonable. Now watch what happens if you try and weld onto this kind of garbage. I mean, I've seen people out there trying to weld to this sort of stuff, and this is what's going to happen. Absolutely crap. So as you can see, it's very, very important that the steel that you're welding to is nice and clean. You don't want to be trying to weld to rusty stuff like that. You need to be chopping large sections of this stuff out. Don't be scared to chop out a reasonable section of this. You know, I mean, I could have just quite easily tried to chop these small pieces out, but for what it is, you need to get all this garbage out, get as much of that crap out as you can, get down to some decent steel, guys, and don't be scared to put a decent sized patch in there. Doing anything like this is only going to come and bite you back in the backside. You're just wasting your time trying to weld to stuff like this and trying to repair absolute garbage like that. So there we have it. I hope this is somewhat of help to you guys. I'd be interested to hear your comments and what you think, and if this has been any help to you. So please leave us a comment and let us know if this has helped you out at all. If you've got any other questions, again, feel free to pop that in the comments, and I'll do my best to try and do videos on this kind of stuff. The whole reason for this channel is to help you guys and the average man doing this kind of stuff with basic tools in your garage at home, or you know, even if you're in a unit with basic tools. We're just trying to sort of give you some advice, and the best advice we can on the way we do things and the lessons we've learned over the years. I'll say it again, I'm not a professional welder, I'm not a professional car restorer. This is simply a hobby for me, and I'm just doing my best. I'm just trying to teach you guys some of the lessons I've learned the hard way over the years. So that's that. Give us a like, give us a comment, share the post if you can, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.